Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Interviews Heart and Soul Conversations. My name is Kenda Bell, and I'm joined once again by my wonderful co-host in all things love and power, my hubby, Senbi Akau.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me back.
I know, I be thinking sometimes, but it's all good. I'm just teasing. So this month, our theme has been thoughts of Black men. And so we've had some great guests that talked about healing, that talked about lineage. And now we have another guest who is a friend of mine named Matt Prestbury. And we are going to be talking about Black fatherhood. This brother, I remember we met at an event, I believe, or something, and he shared that he wanted to do a show that was dedicated to fathers. And then his vision just expanded to now having a prosperous and thriving and much needed foundation. So I wanted him to join us to share about what Black fatherhood truly is and how we can support fostering these very necessary relationships for our children. So welcome, Matt.
Peace. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes. So first of all, what inspired you to create this foundation?
So the foundation itself is an offspring of the Black Fathers group. The group has been running since 2008 on Facebook. And over the course of the years, every time we get some media publicity and such, people would say, oh, you need to start a nonprofit. And for the longest time, I dragged my heels on it because I just didn't know in which direction really that we would take it. And also, I wasn't sure, honestly, that people in the group would support for as much as they talked about it. Like, I just didn't know for sure that they would really get behind it and do more than step away from their keyboards and do more than hit like and, all of that sort of stuff, hit share and all that good stuff. So I was dragging, and then finally Facebook presented an opportunity to be a part of what they call the Facebook Community Leadership Program. And so I applied. I said, why not? And go for it. The worst that can happen is they say no. So I did that. And at the same time, I actually got into the program Practitioners Leadership Institute at Center for Urban Families. Sorry. At the behest of David Miller, who basically cussed at me and said, I better get off and go and be in this program and stop screwing around, right? So I got into the program, and that was to give you training on starting or continuing maintaining a nonprofit. So in both programs at the same time, and with the Facebook program, they gave you funding to do a project of your choosing. So a lot of people did all kinds of things related to their groups. And I figured that what I wanted to do was go ahead and push forward the nonprofit. I felt like much of the emphasis, or not the emphasis, but what really ignited me to do it was that I felt like there needed to be more. Like, this Facebook group is fantastic. It's a lot of people in it. They're doing great things, but I needed more. I needed something like I felt like I could touch and where I could see that I was really helping men and helping them be better and do better for their families and stuff like that. So I get in the program and in both of the programs and come out, and my wife and I together, we co-created it and made it happen. So right now it is a fiscally sponsored organization, and we're working to get our nonprofit 501c3 status in effect So we're still building, working toward building a board and all of those sorts of things. But the main thing about it was that we really wanted to create something where, again, like I said, where I could see and feel that I was actually helping fathers and providing
Right.
resources and doing all of those things that really improved their lots as fathers and their situations, their families, their communities, that whole thing. So, yep,
Okay, that sounds good. Now, you are a very proud dad.
absolutely.
So, can you share like how being, a father, inspired you to do this?
Yeah, so everything that I do, so much, just about 100% of what I do in life really is revolves around fatherhood. So none of these things that I'm doing in this vein would really be happening if I hadn't become a father. So there's so many
Hmm.
opportunities that have come just by way of me being a father. My children have pushed me, so I'll give you a little bit of the rundown. I was married previously, and I had two children by my first wife. We
Hmm.
we separated. She put me out of the house one night, and then we separated, and eventually divorced. And I was granted full custody of our two sons because she never even showed up at court for the divorce proceedings.
Hmm.
So judge granted me custody. So, but even before that, when that night she put me out of the house, I'm like, I'm coming back tomorrow and I'm getting my sons. I'm never not going to be in their lives. And I knew that from day one. I would never be away from them. I would never not be a part of their lives. So doing that and I was a single dad for a month maybe or so. Um, and
Hmm.
I was actually staying with my mom at the time, so I wasn't hardly doing it alone. And then I met my beautiful current wife, Kelly, not too long after. So she came into the picture. So having my two sons and bringing them up, and then later on having another son and a daughter with Kelly, that was all of the inspiration because I wanted other fathers. Like I knew there was so many other fathers out there, so many other black men particularly, who weren't being properly and adequately represented in,
Hmm.
especially in mainstream media, but just in our
Hmm.
society period, and valued. Like at that time, the value that we have on fathers now, and Father's Day, like you can tell from the way Father's Day is progressing and things
Yes.
like that, the value that we place on fathers has increased. So at the time, I didn't feel like the value was there, especially for us as black men. We were constantly misrepresented in the media when we weren't shown, shown as deadbeats and criminals and all of these sorts of things. And then when people would see me in public with my kids, it would be all kinds of dumb stuff like, "Are they all yours? Have your hands full," and just crazy kind of stuff. So I just, in terms of creating black fathers and going from there, I really wanted to give us an opportunity to present ourselves to the world versus
Hmm.
having the world say, this is who you are, this is what you are as a black man, as a father. So yeah, my kids really have inspired everything that I do. And not only have they inspired, but the way that people have treated me as a father, has also
Hmm.
inspired me to go forward and do the work in the way that I know that other black men who are fathers have been treated, misrepresented, underrepresented, totally ignored, and all of those sorts of things. So all of that, it really inspires me to do what I do.
Well, that's some important work that you do, bro.
Thank
I want to really thank you for doing that. Kendra told me about you, and I'm glad to learn about what you're doing. Um, so would you say, like, as far as black men, black fathers, do we get a bad rap, of the reputation of being deadbeats? Like, are there more, in your opinion, responsible and present fathers in the black community than there are not? Or is that a serious issue in your opinion?
So to start with that last question, the representation is totally false, not only from what I have seen in my experience and what pushed me to start the group, but also what I've seen in my experience of running the group and having currently now 90,000 black men in this group who are
Mm.
proud to stand up and say their fathers, whether they are currently connected with their children in terms of, especially in terms of physical access to their children or not. If they're not currently raising their children, they're fighting to raise their children. So I think people look at a lot of times, people see what they want to see, you know, and they portray what they want to portray in terms of who we are, and it's
Mhm.
intentional. And they also take statistics and spin them around and make them work how they want them to work. So you could look at a number and you could say whatever it is, 72% or whatever the number is, when you say black children are born out of wedlock, and people automatically assume, some people automatically assume that means that the father is not there and he's not
Mhm.
active. So that's a lot of where that comes from, where people say, oh, they're deadbeats because these children aren't born in a two-parent home, which is already an assumption. Just because you're not married don't mean you're not living in a home, right? And even if you're
Mhm.
not living in a home doesn't mean you're not active in that child's life. You can
Mhm.
be, and studies have shown that black men on whole who do not live or who are not the custodial parent are more active in their children's lives than any other race of people.
Mm.
Mhm.
So there's that debunks that myth right there. But there are a lot of people who you have to explain that to, because like I said, they see what they want to see. They take that number and they're like, oh, they no good, this and that. And also what people do is project. So if
Mhm.
you're in a situation and you have a child and that child's father walks away from you, then all of a sudden niggas ain't shit. You know what I'm saying? Because
Mhm.
that's your situation, and maybe a couple of your homegirls are in the same situation, but you're not looking on whole and seeing the Matt Prestburys, you're not seeing the Jamal Smiths, you're not seeing all of these people who are active 365, 24/7 in their children's lives. So to answer that question, it's totally a myth that we as black men are on whole not involved in our children's lives. We are far more involved than we are not. You know, we are the norm. The exception is those who walk away and don't become involved in their children's lives. We are not the exception.
Mhm.
That's a very important fact. Now, even in my experience, you know, growing up, of course, you know, my father was there, and all of my friends I grew up with, I I don't know of any whose father was not in their life, present in their life. And now, you know, the circles that I roll with, I don't know a man who is not present or striving to be present
Right.
in his children's lives.
Right.
So yeah, that's a horrible myth. I'm glad we're busting that myth apart though.
Yeah, it is. I've made a shirt in the past, and I need to bring this back out to my collection. And it says on the shirt, "All my homeboys raise their babies," because that's a fact.
Mm,
Mhm.
Everybody that I'm connected with has raised or is currently raising their child. I don't know any man that I'm in any way remotely connected to who has not been involved in his child's or children's lives at all.
Mhm.
mhm,
And
Amen.
if they do that intentionally, they can't be connected to me, because I don't get down with that. So
Mhm.
you know, I just can't. If that's your choice, now there are a lot of men out there, and this is the other thing that people don't, either they don't recognize or they don't want to recognize, is that there are a lot of men out there who are fighting diligently to be in their children's lives, and they're being kept away intentionally by
mhm,
the mom, by the courts, by the police. It's a
mhm,
lot of entities that actively work to keep men, black men especially, out of their
mhm,
children's lives. So people can look at that and, you know, look at a man who's not there with his child every day and assume, if they want to, that he doesn't want to be involved. But that's not always the case. Sometimes he's being kept away.
Mm.
So does your foundation and organization does it help brothers who may be faced with that issue? They want to be involved in their child's lives, but they either, you know, getting blocked by the mother or the system and so forth.
Yeah, we definitely do. So one of my favorite people in the world is Eric Smith, and he runs Winning Strategies, which is a program in Baltimore. So he and others we rely on. We don't do the work directly, but we are developing, in the process of developing, a system where we can lead fathers. And like I said, Winning Strategies is number one in my book. We also have Joel Austin in Philly, who runs Daddy
Mhm.
University. all of these are great knowledgeable men in terms of fathers' rights, and they can tell fathers exactly where they need to go and what they need to do. The one thing that we want to work on, this is a future plan, is really creating a network of lawyers who will do work pro bono, because that's a thing that a lot of men run into, is just the fact that they can't afford adequate representation. Again, we go back to fighting. They're fighting to be in their children's lives, but if you really want to do it successfully, the most of the time you're going to have legal representation. And if you can't afford that, then you just ask out. People are like, it's 5,000 just to sit down with a lawyer, So if you're struggling, you're working every day, you're just trying to make ends meet, you're trying to make your child support payment, and you're doing all these things, you might not even not only have that money, but might not even have the ability to take a day off of work to go to court, because then that could jam you up, So there's so many factors that people don't take into account. And it's really lazy and disingenuous to just sit around and automatically assume that just because somebody has a certain skin color, or just because somebody's in a certain situation, you don't see them with their child every day, that they are a deadbeat dad.
Right. So fortunately, I was blessed, to have, I have 5 children. Me and their mother are divorced, but, she's a great mother, never in any way tried to, do those things to block me from participating in my children's lives. But like, I think of like young men who are yet to have, any children. Do you have any advice or suggestions on what to look for in a woman before you start making babies that could really that you can really maybe make an assessment to see, okay, she would be a great mother, and if something happens where we don't succeed in our relationship, can we still get along good enough to co-parent?
Right. So I don't know necessarily if there are things to look for, but what I always suggest to young men is to have a conversation and to listen to what she's saying when you ask that question, just like you said. So what do? We make this baby and say we don't work out. What do we do? But the thing is that it's it's still a crapshoot, but it's better than nothing. I feel like if you at least have the conversation and make a plan. Like somebody said before, there should be something like, you have a prenuptial before you get married. Like you should have an agreement you sign before you make a baby. And it's like, all right, if you are actively taking care of this child, I'm not going to take you downtown with child support. It should be something like that, but that really doesn't exist. So the best you can do really is to have that conversation and to really pay attention. But I've run into so many fathers, one in particular, who just really got jammed up badly, and we were working to help him out. And he said that there were some signs that he did overlook. Of course, a lot of times, us as young men, or I was a young man once, but
I'm still a young man. Don't let the
all
grade.
right, I got you, got you.
This guy.
We the first thing is that we have to really stop just wanting to get between the legs and make that happen without having the thought in our mind that this does lead to fatherhood. I don't become a father by shooting hoops on the basketball court. I don't become a father by sitting in front of the TV watching the game or playing the whatever PlayStation or whatever. I don't even play, so I don't know. But the PlayStation, whatever it is, I become a father by having sex, whether I want to or not. So that's really the first thought that we have to have every time we lay down. It's an opportunity and a chance that we're going to become a father. So what you need to do is first see and ask yourself, is this a person that I can even see myself having a child with? Is do I feel like it could work out? Do we have a relationship where we have good communication, or is it toxic? Like with my first wife, I ignored a lot of signs, and we had 2 children, but the relationship was bad the whole time. We argued the whole time, and that affected our children tremendously. So it's those sorts of things. You should ultimately should want to have a relationship with this person, first of all, before you decide to lay down with them.
Mhm.
Second, you should have a conversation and just ask them and kind of prepare yourself and them mentally for the possibility. Because if we never think about it, then everything becomes just a reaction. It's all on the fly. You dig? If you don't have any kind of preparation, then everything is a reaction, and that's where we tend to fail so often as fathers. Because, like I said, when we lay down, very few of us lay down with a woman and say, "Okay, we're about to make a baby. I'm ready. Let's do this." No, we like, "Oh yes, I'm about to get it." Bang, 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 and then the
Mhm.
next thing you know, she talking about I'm
Oops.
pregnant, and you like, "Not by me," or "I ain't
Mhm.
ready," and so on and so forth, because you didn't prepare yourself for the possibility. So that those are the main things that you have to do. But other than that, like, we're all human. People change. So somebody could be fine one day, and then that baby come and they turn into a totally different person. So it's no guarantee, but you at least, like I said, prepare yourself and have that conversation to get an idea of where that person's head is at.
Hmm. I have a question, if you don't mind me asking.
Of course.
Thank you. Okay. So I hear a lot of times that men, and again, I hear this. This is my perception, is that if they don't feel that they have the money, the cash, then they don't feel like they are worthy to go and see their children. Is there something you can say to those men that hide, you know, out of shame for perhaps not having the money to help take care of their children?
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah,
question.
definitely. So there are a few things with that. One thing is that we have to push against that whole idea in general as men and women. And that's a real patriarchal idea that everybody says, oh, you have to be the provider and you have to do this, and your value as a man is all in what you are able to provide, particularly financially for your family. So we have to all do our part to rail against that, because it affects us not only just as fathers, but as husbands and just men in general. And a lot of it falls on the women as well, because we can't just only put the blame. Yes, we do that to ourselves, because there is something internal that happens to us, right? But that's because of what we're fed constantly,
Mhm.
constantly, constantly. You got to do this, you got to do that. Chris Rock said, whatever it is, and a lot of people say that we our only value really as men is what we're able to provide financially. So we take that in, we absorb that, and then we think that if I can't do this, then I have no value. And then on top of that, so many women have taken it in and they just push it even further. Oh, you ain't got no money, you can't see your child, and if you ain't doing this and doing that. So we all, men and women, and it makes it harder as a man, even if you understand the concept, when you're coming and you feel like you're fighting against somebody, because you know that your value is not strictly in the dollar. But if your child's mother only values that way, then you're still like, trying to push a rock up a hill, basically, right? it's
Mhm.
it's it's like a losing battle almost. So we all have to understand that we have more value than just what we can provide financially. But I can't sit here and pretend that it doesn't hurt as a man, right? i
Mhm.
i was i was unemployed for 9 months one time, and it was the worst time of my life, because I just felt like I couldn't provide for my children the way that I
Mhm.
wanted to. But the thing about it is that we also, as men, not only do we have to push off that idea that our worth is only financial, we have to understand that it doesn't make us weak, it doesn't make us feminine or any of those things to be transparent and
Mhm.
honest and vulnerable. So a
Yeah.
lot of that shame comes because you don't want your children to know that you're not in the situation, right? Sure, it hurts, but the thing is, it's better to be open and upfront with your children and let them know, because what you will find is that children most of the time, you know, unless you just raise some gold digging ass children most of the time they want time, they want
Yep.
love. So we think that it's all about the money, but the children a lot of times couldn't care less.
Yep.
They couldn't care less. So if the child's mom is not putting it in their head, then they want you. So that's what I say. Talk to your children and understand what it is that they want, because you will understand that they want you. You can go take them and do shit for free. You can go to the park. You can go to the library, and kids are going to be happy just because you're there. Again, unless you just got some ungrateful children, they're going to be happy that you're spending the time with them and showing them love. Because I tell anybody and everybody, I don't remember, but only thing I remember my father buying me, I'm sure he had to, unless he snuck me in. He bought me tickets to the movies, because we went to the movies a lot of times. And we went to a baseball game in Philly once. So I remember him buying tickets for that. But other than that, I don't remember the things that he bought me, but I remember the things that we did together. I remember we took a trip. People probably so tired of hearing this story. I was like 8 years old, and we drove to Texas and walked across the border to Mexico. One weekend we
Mm.
drove to Canada, and this was before you even need. This was so long ago. You didn't need the passports and all
Now
of
you're
that.
showing your age, Matt.
We didn't. Well, yeah, we didn't understand the lick of French, but we went to Canada, and I had the best time of my life. So it's those sorts of things that we have to understand, that those things are far more important than the money. Sure, you need money to live, you got to survive, and all of that stuff, but it cannot define you as a man strictly on what you can provide financially. We're not ATMs. That's not what we're here for. Just for somebody to
Mm.
come and push buttons and get some money out of us and going about their business. We're so much more than that. And we have to understand that. Us as men and women, all of us have to understand that.
Mm. Well,
Mhm.
well, I know that you are giving us some time, so I'm not going to snatch you on here for over the 30 minutes because I would, I can go on and talk.
I can too.
I know, I know, but I'm going to respect you. So,
Appreciate it.
how can people contact you? How can people support what you are doing? How can they contact you and support you?
Got it. So the best way to contact us is through our Facebook page, the Black Fathers Foundation. That's number
Mm-hmm.
one. And if you are a member of the Facebook group Black Fathers, you can always reach me there, or rather, inbox me on Facebook. But the best way is the page.
Okay.
We also have an Instagram, the Black Fathers Foundation. People can like us on Instagram, follow us, and also if they want to contact me there, they can DM me or whatever, message me on there. And Twitter is Black Fathers FDN. So those are the main spaces. We have our website, blackfathers.org. People can check it out. We really have to update it though, because
Mm-hmm.
we're just now getting with a new fiscal sponsor. We switched over from the old one. So we've got to update some things, and we have some plans in the works that we haven't quite put on the website yet. But I
Mm-hmm.
encourage people to go check it out. It's a beautiful website,
That's all. It
blackfathersfoundation.org.
is nice.
Thank you. So, yeah, those are the main ways. And I want people to stay connected. So, if they follow us, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and really stay connected to watch the progress, because we have some good things in the works that we're working on, and people will see. We have something coming up in Baltimore. I don't want to get too much into it, but we're going to be doing some funding. We're doing some micro grants for organizations and
Oh.
individuals in Baltimore who are doing work around fatherhood. So
Mm.
I don't want to get too far ahead of myself
I
and
understand. You got to come
put too
back and
much out there.
tell us.
Yeah, I certainly will. I'll be glad to come back on the show. And I'm sorry I'm dealing with this right now, but it's still this
Mm.
after effects of COVID. So it's just kind of wearing me down after a while. So
That's okay. I appreciate you soldiering through,
Mhm.
thank you.
because I've always been an advocate for fathers and for Black men and Black people and getting the messages out.
Yeah.
So I'm very thankful that you joined us today.
I'm thankful. Thank you for having me. And I just want to say the last thing in terms of getting the messages out. I'm really glad to see how mainstream media has really changed, because when we first started, one of the things I always said was I want to do what mainstream media is not doing. And now mainstream media has really flipped it around and they've come to us. So I'm proud, really proud to have been a part of that, and really, I think a pioneer of sorts to really
You
be
are.
of that and have mainstream media really coming around to want to show positive stories about Black men. I think that's huge.
Yes. Well, I will be in touch because
Yes.
I want to have you back, and
I would
we
love
can
it.
do some things. So,
Great work, brother. And
Thank you.
I'll be seeking your organization out and joining online and seeing how I can get more involved in that. I love the work, brother.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate you both. Thanks for having me.
thank you so much, Matt. All right, everybody. This is a short one tonight, but we will be back next Thursday. And we will be speaking to Jabari Natur
Jabari Natur,
of Soul Vivers Nations,
the legendary Jabari.
Reality Speaks, and he is going to be speaking about the importance of entrepreneurship and Black men. He has a wonderful barbershop called Conscious Heads, where he is also training young men and women on how to barber and how to have their own business. So they don't have to be hungry unless they choose to be, right?
I mean, unless they fasting or something, you know.
Unless they fasting or something. Okay. So that's it.
But
guys.
it's not going to be because they don't have the money.
That's right. So join us again next Thursday. We're going to be doing it at a special time next week. It will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So thanks for joining us. And Matt, once again, thank you for joining us today.
Blessings and salute.
All right, good people.